So here is exactly what I would do to scale from 1K MRR to 10K MRR as fast as humanly possible. First off, who am I? My name is Ondrej. I've built Vectel, my AI startup, from zero to 14 months later, selling it for $1.8 million. And I've been in the AI space for 4 years now. And basically, building and scaling AI startups is all I do. So, 1K MRR. At 1K, you have to realize you don't have product market fit, really. You have some level, because you have at least some customers, but not that much. And you have to accept that and not delude yourself that your idea is the greatest. You might still need to pivot. You might still need to make a lot of changes before you really reach product market fit. Now, your number one job should be talk to customers daily. I know this is like the mainstream advice, but really what that means is find the people who are your power users and also find the people who just joined your product. You cannot talk to power users only because they already know the UI, they already know everything, they already like your product. If you only listen to power users, it's an echo chamber. But if you listen to new users as well, you get both sides. You hear the struggles of like, how is it difficult to use your product for the first time, and some advanced ideas from your power users. And really you should set up a simple system where you talk to these people daily so that you understand what actual problems they have, and that should drive your decision making and what features you add. Next up, you need to set up tracking, something like post hoc, ASAP, because you need to know which features are being used and which aren't. At this stage, 1K MRR, you're probably just guessing. You have no idea about anything, right? And I know that might sound offensive to you, but I don't really care. It is true. If you don't have post hoc or some observability tool, you don't know how people are using an app. You need to see heat maps. You need to see breakdowns of features. You need to see A/B testing. And again, not everything you have to implement right off the bat, but at least if you have like a couple of main features, let's say 3 or 4, you should know which is the number one feature that people actually want, which is the number 2 feature, and then number 3 and 4 you should probably remove. Next up, you need to ship aggressively. At this stage, guys, you don't need to worry about unit tests, staging environment. You need to be shipping to production every single day. Look at the founder of OpenClaw. He's releasing an update, official production update every single day, and this project is used by millions of people, right? And your project isn't used by millions of people, and you're not probably releasing as much as he is, so lock in. Next up, while you're building, you should also spend at least 2 hours a day on customer acquisition. What does that mean? It means marketing, advertising, promotion. It could be cold DMs, it could be cold outreach, just hustling, posting content, organic content. You need to be promoting your product. Otherwise, you will not get more users to get more feedback. And if you don't do that, then you're not in touch with reality and you don't know how to scale. You don't know what to add, what to remove. You're just guessing. So this should be your first 2 hours every day. And you might be thinking, okay, David, but what if at 1K MRR, I still have a full-time job. This is not my thing. I'm not doing this full-time. I understand that, 10K MRR, you can probably do it full-time. But the trick is, even at 1K MRR, you have to treat it as a full-time job. You have to treat it as a serious business. Otherwise, it will never become one. Now, speaking of customer acquisition, you need to just choose one channel, right? Stop trying to assume you can master YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, paid ads, micro-influencers all at once. You can't. At 1K MRR, you haven't even mastered one. You're not even you're like a baby. You haven't even started, right? So there are people who are making 10 million a month with just YouTube. There are people who make 10 million a month with just influencer marketing. There are brands that make 10 million a month just with paid ads. All of these acquisition channels can get you to millions of month MRR. Unless you're literally distributing leaflets on the street manually and you're doing something scalable that's online, you're fine. Pick one, commit to it. Ideally, the one where your target avatar spends the most time, and just stick with it until you're making 6 figures a month or more. Next up, you want to keep the cost low. And I understand this is probably against what you see on my channel, like using all of the latest, greatest AI tools, just spending crazy money. And if you saw my open router API key usage, you would be, maybe I can show it, maybe not. I don't know. There is some private stuff, but yeah, okay, I'll show a little bit. You can see, yeah, I'm not spending like 3K a month on OpenRouter alone. Now, probably half of that is vector usage, and half of that is just me and my team actually using models like Opus 4.6, Sonnet 4.6, and just not being afraid to spend. But again, you need the revenue for it. If you're at 1K MRR, you should be smart. You should just get a $20 ChatGPT subscription, which gives you some codex usage. GPT 5.3 codex is great. And then just use the best open source models like Minimax. Minimax is crazy. It's like almost as good as the best paid models. Let me pull it up here. Minimax M2.5 right here. Look at the input costs. 0.3 per million input tokens and 1.1 per million output tokens, right? This is probably the best value to result model right now. So if you're worried about costs, just spam this instead of open code. You don't have to worry about $200 a month subscriptions, right? Now, at this level, when you're at like 1K MRR, and realistically, this applies to any business between 1,000 a month and 5,000 a month, you are probably trolling. Your day is probably chaotic and you're working on shit that you feel like working. So what you need to do is you need to track the whole funnel, right? And this is why I suggested earlier post hoc, but it goes beyond that. You need to know where the problem is. Where do people drop off? Is it lack of traffic? Is it a bad landing page? Is it a difficult sign-up process? Is it annoying, very long onboarding? Or is it a confusing UI where the people just don't retain, they don't see a reason to use your app every single day? You need to know, and by the way, all of these will have big drop-offs at 1K MRR, but you need to know your data and you need to know where the biggest drop-off is. You need to have a clear overview of the entire funnel, right? Top of funnel, you have the traffic, the eyeballs, and going down to paying customers. You need to know where is the biggest drop. And again, you can use AI to analyze it. I know on my channel, I mostly use AI for coding and stuff, but guys, I'll tell you a little secret. You can also use AI to solve other problems, whether it's marketing, whether it's business direction, whether it's analyzing your funnel. Just put all the context into Opus 4.6 and ask it, what is the biggest funnel? Browse the web, research what is standard for my industry, for this type of product, for this business model. What are the industry standards? And where do I have the biggest gap, the biggest deficiency? Where is the biggest delta? Once you find that, then you know what to work on. Once you find the biggest bottleneck, fix the biggest bottleneck. Do not just work on what feels fun to work on. I know that's probably how you get into it. That's how people get into vibe coding or agentic engineering, building an AI company. It feels amazing. Like we're literally at the beginning of the singularity. AI is exponentially improving and most people are not paying attention at all. I get that. But at the same time, if you want to make serious business money, you need to run it like a serious business, which means you need to, every single day, you should be spending most of your time working on the biggest bottleneck and not what you feel like working on. I know you might feel like, oh, I'm going to improve the product, I'm going to add another feature, I'm going to polish the UI a bit, blah, blah, blah. No. You should analyze the funnel, find where the biggest issue is in your business, and then work on that. Everything else is a distraction. Even, think about this. If this is the 10 out of 10 task, even 8 out of 10 tasks are the distraction. Your problem most likely isn't scrolling social media, watching Netflix, wasting time. Your problem is allocating time on good tasks instead of on the great ones. That is your problem, and that is what's preventing you from going to 10K, 20K, 30K a month and beyond. Next up, at 10K, you have to realize, once you're getting closer to 10K, you're getting some level of product market fit, but not that much. Don't be overly excited. Again, you should be practical. You shouldn't be giggly and celebrating. There's nothing to celebrate at 10K MRR. Really, until you exit, you shouldn't celebrate. But even when I did my exit, which for a lot of people, 1.8 million is insane amount of money. But unless you really plan on retiring and moving to Argentina and buying a farm and having 10 kids, you're gonna do something after that, right? So I don't know. Even after an exit, I didn't really celebrate. Next up, you need to stop adding features. All of you are guilty of this, and I was more guilty of this than anybody. When I was building Vexel, there was a time where we had 25 different features, and then after implementing post hoc, sentry, proper tracking, doing a lot more customer interviews, we realized most of these features nobody's using. Like literally there were features that like 0.5% of the user base were actually using. So then we had like a 2-week sprint where we basically deleted 70% of the features. And guess what? There were basically no complaints. Why? Because we removed the features that were least used. So yeah, stop adding features and realize that like you can build like a $1 million AI business with one great feature. I know it sounds unbelievable, and it might be optimal adding some supporting features if your customers are requesting them, but most likely you're overdoing it and you have too many features. Next up, you need to double down. Like as you're growing, you need to double down on what's working. And it sounds super obvious, like, a lot of the things I'm telling you are very obvious, but you need to hear them because you're not doing them, right? If you're doing one acquisition channel, let's say you posted some Twitter thread and you got 10 paying customers from that, right? Well, guess what? 10 paying customers is probably not going to change your life. It's not, $10 million, but are you doing a Twitter thread every day? If not, why not? Once you have some level of success, you need to repeat it. But maybe it's like some YouTube format. You posted a YouTube video and that format works. And the video got, 20,000 views or whatever. And then you stop doing that format. Why? Maybe you did LinkedIn cold DMs and, one DM variation worked really well, but you haven't done it in a month and, you haven't really reused it since then. Why? See, you probably have, like if you have some revenue, that I don't care if it's 1K a month, 2K a month, you did some things and they worked. That is the biggest difference in a startup with revenue and startup that has the revenue. Something works, right? You have some level of interest. Some of the things you did worked. So you need to find them. You need to get very specific. What worked about this? Was it the format? Was it the packaging? Was it my delivery? Was it the timing? Was it something else? And do it again. And do it again. And triple down on this. And this is both on the acquisition side, like when it comes to marketing, and both on the product. If there's a feature that people love, double down on that feature. Keep improving that one feature. Stop adding another, irrelevant stuff. Whatever works, triple down on that. Now, the biggest difference as you're approaching 10K MRR is that you can afford more ways of acquiring customers, right? Some paid acquisition methods, such as working with micro-influencers, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, stuff like that, which gives you more opportunities to test. But again, at 10K, like you don't really have that big margins, like even if you're running 80% margins, realistically 70% with API costs, that leaves you 7K to just yourself, and then you have to deduct all the AI tools you're using, so that's going to be at least 500 a month, so like 6.5K. If that's your main thing, that's like barely enough to survive on in 2026, given all the inflation. So you cannot really afford paid marketing methods yet. Maybe if you have experience with paid ads, you should set up retargeting ads because those are almost always profitable, and that's a quick way to add, 1K, 2K MRR to your bottom line. Just retargeting ads on Facebook or Meta suite of products or YouTube. But other than that, you should still probably just do something that's a cheap acquisition method, because you have to realize with Facebook ads and paid ads, you're competing with billion-dollar companies because they're buying the same clicks. So it's probably better just to do something more esoteric, more guerrilla marketing, than to go for these paid methods at 10K. Now, as you get towards 10K, churn starts to matter a lot more, right? How many customers you lose per month. Because even with great marketing, you cannot defeat churn. Churn is the leaky bucket. If your bucket is leaking water, you can pour more water, sure, but like at a certain point, you have to fix the leak. Now, obviously, you will never get to 0% churn unless you have a referral system that refers you more customers per month than you lose per month, which is very rare. And at that point, you should just quit everything you're doing and commit to this fully, because that's insane. That's like product market fit 101. But what I'm trying to say is that like scaling beyond 10K MRR is very much about churn, and especially if your main price point is monthly. If you have an annual price point, then it's more about like marketing and sales and the offer. If you're selling mainly month to month and you have a low ticket B2C subscription, then churn is everything. So make sure to understand why people churn, at what point they churn, and like what type of target avatar churns more than others, and focus on that more as you're approaching 10K MRR more and beyond. Next up, you should use the best tools at this point, right? Like as you go beyond 5K MRR, you don't need to be budgeting as much, you can just buy Cloud Code subscription, $100 a month, or even the $200 a month. You can get Cursor, $60 subscription. You can get the $200 a month ChatGPT subscription, which gives you basically unlimited GPT 5.3 codecs. I mean, it would be very hard to hit those limits. And that allows you to ship a lot faster. And especially like if you feel the need for it, right? Maybe you're happy with the previous cheap setup, Kimi K 2.5, Minimax, but at this point you don't have to be cheap. That's my point. You don't have to be cheap. Now hiring, this is a mistake that people make. They hire too soon, right? If you are technical, if you're a good developer, or if you're just like technical product manager or somebody who understands software and programming, you should stay solo for as long as possible. Like ideally 30K, 50K MRR or beyond. You shouldn't even consider hiring until 50K MRR, because you think having another person would speed you up, but you have to manage them, you have to train them, you have to explain everything. It's not going to double your output. It might even slow you down. Now, the caveat is, if you are non-technical, right? Let's say you're more of a business background or more of a marketing background, and you are starting to feel like you identified that the biggest bottleneck is, fixing bugs or maybe releasing to production or delivery some sort of software. If this really is the biggest bottleneck, which again is pretty rare, and you are not technical, then at 10K MRR you could consider hiring the first developer, but I would still wait, maybe like 15K, 20K MRR. That way you have better understanding of the core product yourself, you have healthier margins, and you don't start hiring before really having product market fit. Because at 50K MRR, you definitely have some product market fit. At 10K, it's like hit or miss, Nobody knows if it continues or not. Now, this video is very raw, as you can see, no bullshit. It's very clear for who is it for. It's for people who are at least at 1K MRR and want to go to 10K MRR, 20K MRR, and beyond. And that's exactly who I built my accelerator for. Now, to be clear, we do not accept anybody who's below $1,000 a month. So if you don't have an AI business that makes at least $1,000 a month, feel free to close the video right now, because this is not the thing for you. But if you are a founder and your AI business is doing 1,000 a month or more, then make sure to apply to the accelerator. It's going to be the first link below the video. Inside, me and my team work with a handful of founders for 6 months and help them go from 1K, 2K, 3K a month to $200,000 ARR and beyond. So if that sounds something interesting to you, make sure to apply. It's going to be the first link below the video.